welcome to Cavalier Family. As many of you know, we are an independent studio, and on this show, we do have guests as well as we do have our regular show where we will be discussing the entertainment from the big screen to the small screen, your favorite independent films, TV shows, cartoons, sometimes video games, music as well. Just for future reference, the show will change eventually, going in a new direction, different dynamic, but it's for the benefit of you, the listener, just only because of the fact that it solely is to focus on each showing of each TV show, of each video game, of each section of every week. So it's more information for you guys, a little bit fun facts, a little bit more on that. But again, that's for future reference. We would like to, of course, thank Kevin Holmes, who did the intro and outro videos, as well as Justin Dye, who's created many of the musical elements for us. We'd also like to thank Stephen Dawson, who is our researcher and who's helped research many of this information for us. As far as updates go, of course, there is that little change that I was referencing in the very beginning where it is going to change in the future, but it's for the benefit of you, the listener, for more information on subjects of TV shows, cartoons. So then that way you can have more of a backstory of why it's number 1 or number 2 or number 5. And with that in mind, of course, we do have the Cavalier Family shop. The link is in this description, whether if it is on the podcast or the YouTube video itself, which of course you can listen to us on many of the major podcast developers such as Apple, Buzzsprout, Google, Amazon, as well as Spotify. And many of the purchases such as the merchandise in there, such as coffee mugs, shirts and stuff, all the proceeds go to this podcast, go towards the independent filming. And with that in mind, I would like to welcome all of you to the show, and I would like to introduce you to a woman who is an amazing artist. She is a Cavalier Family follower and podcast subscriber, a graduate from Spring Arbor University who's enjoyed the peacefulness of oil painting, gorgeous life like landscapes for the past 20 plus years. She's lived mostly in Kalamazoo, Michigan, but now resides in the beautiful state of West Virginia. She's literally looked life in its eye and she said, you know what, fuck you to cancer, and she kicked its ass. You can follow her on many of the social networks platforms, such as at Connie May Studio on Instagram or on Connie May Studio on Twitter. And all the link to her websites is in the comment section below. Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to the magnificent, the beautiful, the lovable. And is that painting? Is that a painting, or am I looking outside a window artist, Connie Moeller? Connie, how are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for having me here, Todd. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. You know, a lot of the stuff that we have here for Cavalier Family is to focus on a lot of the independent individuals who do their own paintings, to do their own studios and stuff like that. And when I saw your work, I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful. It's literally looking like you're looking outside of a window type element. I mean, you could see some of the paintings that you've done in the background as well with that actual waterfall back there. And personally, I thought it was a waterfall that you created inside that room. I didn't even look at it like a painting in the beginning. So that's how amazing your work of art is.
Well, thank you. I love nature so much. So to me, that's what gives me joy and peace. And I want to share it with others. So that's a big reason why I paint what I paint. And that waterfall, funny story, when you said that, I actually, while I was painting it, I found those soundtracks that you can listen to of different things. I put on waterfall sounds just to help get me in the mood for painting it too. So it was gave me the feeling of being there. So
oh, that's wonderful. Now let's go ahead and jump into the life of Connie Moeller. And what we're going to do is we're going to start at the very beginning, because from our conversation, from previous conversations other than this, is you mentioned on how you actually went to college, but your major actually changed. You went from, I believe you said, teaching to artwork. So
right.
I mean, I know the backstory of this, but a lot of the listeners don't know. And it's a fascinating tale as well, because it kind of shows you, you know, art is for You know, it can be for everybody. You just have to find it for yourself and find exactly what you love and you're passionate about. So what made that change? What made that development say, you know what, I want to pursue this? I love teaching, I love kids, but this is, I can feel that this is my realm.
Yeah, I grew up with a big interest in art always. I mean, from a little kid, my mom noticed it and she was always buying me art supplies and things because she knew I had that interest. And I always did. I always took art classes in junior high and high school and things, but I never thought you could just make a career of it. And I came from a family of teachers. So to me, that was the natural thing. Well, you know, it's just natural to be a teacher. I had a uncle who was a principal, aunt who was a teacher, my mom was a teacher, you know, so I was like, this is just what you do, you know, pretty much. And so I went to college and thought I would just go into teaching. And I did know that there was art majors, but I just thought in that era, it was like, it was in the 70s. And like when I graduated, and art was taking this different direction that I didn't really want to have to do in college. It was going very abstract in that time. And not that I'm against any abstract art. I think that's got its place, but it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And so I didn't want to major in art because I didn't want to be told I had to do that kind of thing. And I just loved doing what I wanted to do. And I didn't want the pressure. I thought I just want to paint what I want to paint. I don't want pressure. I don't want people telling me what to paint. And so I had a friend though who was majoring in art there, and she would be talking about her. This was at the first week of classes. I mean, you couldn't just change your major anytime during there, but the first week of classes, I'd hear her projects that she had going on. She was a year older ahead of me in school, and she just, I started feeling kind of jealous, like, man, I want to be doing that. I wish I could do that. And I still didn't think too seriously about it, but the art professor, the head of the art department, called me. I'm in my dorm and said, hey, I see on your SAT test that you have an interest in art. And I said, well, yeah, I have an interest. It's kind of a hobby, but I don't plan to major in it. And he said, well, you should come and talk to me, because if you want to major in art, you need to take drawing 1 this semester or you're going to be behind and you won't be able to catch up until you'll get like a year behind or whatever. And I said, well, that's okay. I don't want to. And he convinced me to come talk to him and go meet some other art majors and realize that, hey, in this school, we teach a classical education, and, you know, you will be introduced to some abstract stuff, but that's not all we do. And so I just decided to change my major, and I'm really glad I did. I learned a lot. That, I mean, there is always this natural thing from just picking things up because you do it, but there are techniques and things to learn too that I'm glad I had the education for it. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, do you remember the first artwork that you ever painted, or that you did, like if it was acrylic or oil based, or what is that first thing that you remember?
Well, the first painting, I mean, I did all kinds of other kinds of artwork. I do a lot of drawing when I was a kid, but when I was in high school, I was so excited to finally take, there was, you know, you had to take art 1, but then when I could take art 2, you got to paint. I was so excited because that was what I really wanted to do. And we only used acrylic in that class, and we only could use primary colors. So we had red, blue, yellow, and we could not use black, and we could use white, but that was, we had to create everything that we did from that. And I did, my family had just gone to California the summer before that for a vacation. And I was so amazed by the Pacific Ocean that I could not wait to try to paint a painting of the Pacific Ocean. And so I had my little picture, and our teacher also, he was very good for a high school art teacher. He wanted you to paint from your memory, from life, and not be relying on a photograph. So I couldn't look at the photograph while I painted, and I had to use primary colors to create the whole painting. And it was really good training. And I'd look at my photograph and then I'd have to put it away, you know, and he wouldn't let me keep it out while I painted. And I painted so slow, and it was a big, large painting. And I had I came in on my lunch hours to work on it because I wasn't getting it done during class time. So I'd pack my lunch and take my sandwich and come in there and paint by myself. Maybe a couple other kids did the same thing, but I remember really having such a strong desire to get that done. I still have it. I was pretty proud of it when I got it done. It's my mom hung it up in our house for a while. She thought but I just that's the first memory. Now I don't paint acrylics anymore. I use oil because that's what we did in college, and I got where I just loved working in oil, but that one was my first one. So.
But isn't that wonderful though? Like even high school or college, like just that sensation of knowing that, okay, as far as a child or as far as a child to a parent, my work of art has gone from the fridge to the wall. Like that's a different level of like acceptance. Like, oh, this is good. I know this is good because it's not on the fridge. It's not macaroni anymore. It's right there on that wall.
But I think there's something to, as a parent, putting your kids' art on the fridge or wherever you put it to let them know, hey, this is still special enough for me to hang up somewhere in the house and have it here. I love what you did, and it means a lot to me to have it, and I always did that as a mom. I always hung my kids' stuff different places in the house just to encourage them in doing their art too. So and my mom probably did that. She didn't like a lot of stuff on the fridge, so she didn't really do that even, I don't think, but she always encouraged me in my art, so it is important to do.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, with the going from like high school to college to now, is there anything that like gets you, that has stuck with you as far as mood goes, like to set you in that setting, whether if it be music, whether if it be listening to like a certain type of radio, or whether if it be watching a certain type of movie, or just being secluded in, because you do, landscapes, being secluded in that outdoors, like you're sitting outdoors and you're watching what you're wanting to paint and listening to nature. Like what sets you in that mood to where you can focus, you can kind of key in and just really lose yourself in your art?
It's a really good question. I think it's maybe twofold, because my inspiration definitely comes from being out in nature. When I'm walking or even driving in the car, sometimes looking out the window, whatever, when I see things, my mind wants to figure out how I can portray that on a 2D surface. Like how can I see these reflections in the water and I see the stones through it and I see all this stuff. How can I put that in a 2D thing? And like, that's what I'm thinking. Or I see sunlight on the bark of a tree and how cool it is and how the designs it makes. And and it inspires me so much to just want to somehow put that. I think it's so beautiful and I want to share it and get it down. But when I'm in my studio, I think there's different things. It probably depends on the mood I'm in day to day, but a lot of times I turn on some music that kind of gets me feeling, usually it's kind of calming kind of music, and meditative sometimes. And then other times I'll listen to podcasts and things like that. If once I get in the groove, like to get started, I usually have to have it very meditative and so I can really just kind of focus and feel in that place. Once I get going on something, I'll listen to podcasts. A lot of times self-improve, like the kind that help you in your thinking and life and things like that. I love to listen to those. And I also, sometimes I'll turn on my good old rock music, just because if I'm like needing to really move on something, just like, okay, let's jam a little bit and get going on this thing. So
number one artist?
My number one artist?
That you listen to, like whenever you put on that rock music, you're like, okay, I'm going to listen to that person.
I have a Spotify playlist that is like all my favorites. And I have to say, I Love Rock and Roll. Joan Jett is like always on there.
Very good choice. Is there like a specific song by her, or is it just a wide variety of many
I
things?
Love Rock and Roll is the song by her that I always, and I mean, there's other songs, of course, you know, that I listen to, and um, that's, yeah.
Well, I
So,
mean, I know whenever I type for, because it's exactly that. Like, you set your mood and for you to zone in so that way you can focus. Whenever, if it has to do anything with video editing, I know it's starting to become a thing, but sometimes I listen to like, ASMR, which is an auditory sensory meridian response where it sounds like whether if it's like cutting a soap or whispers, and that kind of like relaxes me to the point where I can you know, edit videos, I can edit doing other stuff. However, when it comes to writing, like for an example, right now I'm writing a horror screenplay. And in order to be set in that mood and be like, okay, let's think about inspiration wise of different types of movies, like, um, and different horror directors like James Wan, for an example, what can get me into that mood. And a lot of times it's actually a little heavier. Like for example, Slipknot will set me in that mood. So like for you, it's interesting to know, just to know that Joan Jett, like I can picture you like dancing and stuff like that, getting into the mood and having fun with what you're painting and the landscaping, and just overall just time passes so much faster when you're in that zone, when you're in that I guess element, just because of the fact that you are having fun. You're having fun with what you're doing, and it's not just the painting, but it's also the music. So I'm fascinated on how much like just the arts in general can do that to somebody.
it's true. And like when I'm getting, like I said at the beginning, trying to focus, get a lot of my paintings, you know, they're so peaceful. The settings are very peaceful. And so a lot of my music, I love to listen to like some Celtic music sometimes, you know, that
Oh,
the sound of
nice.
the Celtic music
Hmm.
gets you, because it feels like it's nature to me, you know, it's like
Hmm.
the sounds that they have, and I can just kind of feel like I'm immersed in that. And other times I like to listen to like more meditative, spiritual kind of music,
Hmm.
because to me, nature helps me feel closer to God, and that's partly why I love it so much. And so there's a group called Cageless Birds, and they have like very their music is just very calm and uplifting, and I like to listen to them a lot, different times too, when I'm
Hmm.
just trying to get in that mode of just being in that place. But
Yeah.
like I said, once I'm there and once I've been working on something for, oh, my paintings take me a few weeks at least, you know. And so like after I've been into it and getting working on it, then a lot of times I'll switch it up. So
Well, jump into the paintings. Obviously, paintings, no matter what artistic field that you're in, a lot of times it does take a few weeks to complete or a few days to complete. What is the worst scenario that you've been in where it's like when you're writing something, it's writer's block? Well, for a painter, sometimes you get to the point where like it's not coming out how you want it, or and you're trying to fix it. So how, in those circumstances, have you ever been in that circumstance where it's been so bad that you've actually quit what you've painting, as well as what helps you to get out of that stage, get out of that writer's block, if you will?
that is a really good question, because yeah, there's times where I've almost quit. Of
Okay.
almost every painting I do, I'll come to a point where I'll be like, oh, this is terrible. Why do I even think I can do this? I mean, I get to this point and I think this is not how I wanted it to be, and it's not getting it. And I just, oh, I think I'm just going to trash it and, you know, start over. And,
Hmm.
the question about what makes me keep going, I don't even know. It's like I'll just kind of think, well, I'll just paint more today and see if it comes out better or whatever. And there's a couple different ones that I specifically remember doing that with and thinking this is terrible. And then when I finally did get it finished, people said, I think this is the best one you've ever done. And so just working through it for one thing, but also um, I don't know. I think being in when I was in college, you couldn't just quit. And I think that gave me, I think that's part of why that education was important, was you had an assignment to do. You couldn't just go on the whim of like, how do I feel today? Do I feel like doing this or not? You had to do it. And I had tons of all-nighters working on getting these things done when I didn't feel like it. And I think that was a good education for now. And I have a lot of commissions that sometimes they're not like what I would choose to pay, but I'm doing it for someone and I have to do it. And sometimes that makes me really nervous because I think, oh, this is not maybe my norm, or I want to make sure this person really likes it. And there's pressure there. So sometimes that can make you feel less in the mood to do it because of the pressure. And I pray and ask God for help. Honestly, I do. And it's like, and then I just also might listen to one of those motivational podcasts too. And just some of the art podcasts that I listen to help, because everybody gets in those spots and you realize, okay, everybody gets in this, everybody can work through it. I can do this. And just work through it. And then, and there are many times where I feel like what I wanted to say when you started saying that was, I'll make a mistake that I think is a mistake. And then I stand back and look at it and I think, wait a minute, that might look good there. Maybe I should just leave that. And sometimes the things that we think are mistakes actually are good and are meant to be. And I think I've learned that, like, I think that's a life lesson too, that sometimes, we think we have a plan and we think it's going to go how we think it's going to go, and it doesn't. But the diversion is actually better for us than what we had planned. And I think sometimes in my art, the wrong brush stroke that wasn't supposed to be there, or a splotch that happened, and I don't want it there, and I'm about ready to wipe it off. And then I think, wait a minute, and I'll look back at my reference photo and I'll think, wait, that kind of looks good like that. That kind of is there, or maybe I just want it there and it works. And so I leave it. And so I think we learn from that too.
Yeah, that's wonderful, especially like in the graphic design realm, or as Mr. Bob Ross used to say, it was a happy accident.
Yeah. Good old Bob Ross. Yeah.
A very happy accident. So when it comes to, of course, being commissioned and stuff, and obviously you don't have to name any names, but can you remember a piece that you did where it was your favorite piece that you ever worked on for commission?
There was one that I did for a camp. It was a Young Life camp in our county. They had just purchased this big property. And I knew the director of the organization the regional director. He lived in our town. And one day he and my husband and I were out for lunch, and he said, I love your art. I wish there was some way that I could work it out to make it meaningful to have some of your art. And I said, well, so I have this idea. I said, well, you're trying to raise funds for this camp. And if you had somebody that would underwrite a commission, like one of your donors or something, maybe, and then you could use prints from this painting that I do to help raise your funds. Like you can give one to all the donors or whatever, and I would give them to you at my cost because I care about this camp too, So if you commission me, have somebody pay me to do a commission. And so he talked to one of their high-end donors and came back to me and said, yeah, we're going to do this. We want you to do a scene from the property. So he took me out. This was before they had developed the property. He took me out on a 4-wheel because there was no roads out to it. This is, middle of West Virginia, and it took me out on a 4-wheeler, and it took a while to get to it because there was this little trail that we were on, and we actually saw a bear run right across the trail in front of us. It was awesome. And so I think partly just the experience of being out there, and he took me out to a couple of different places on their grounds. And one was an overlooking a river that is a well-known river here for whitewater rafting. And it was overlooking this whitewater area. That was a beautiful sight. And then he took me down to the river's edge at the same spot. And he said, we one of these, which, you work up a couple sketches in one of these places that we would love to have. And so they chose the Overlook site. I worked up 2 sketches and they chose the Overlook site. And I wanted to go back out there because I hadn't got the right lighting for what I wanted. The day that we went out there was early morning, which is what I thought I wanted. But because of the mountains, the sun was so low that it wasn't shining yet on the scene because it was shaded from the mountains. And so I wanted to go out later in the day where I could see sunlight hitting things, because it just looks better to have that. So I had to go out by myself the next time, and I had to park a few miles from the site because it was not, there was a gate across. So I parked out there and I had to hike in to the site, and it was so much fun. I loved it so much. And I took snacks because I knew I wanted to be there for a while, watching the sun hit it at different angles, and sat on this rock that was this overlook over this beautiful gorge and river. And I think because of the experience of doing that, it meant so much to me that I loved painting it. I mean, when I got back to my studio, I had my pictures and I combined a few different pictures because, like, in one of them, there was a tree in the way. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to eliminate that tree so that we can see the river. And, you kind of, as an artist, you do those things. And it was hard because trying to get the depth that I saw when I was there, and the feeling that I got when I was there, it was hard to get that on a canvas, because it was in the fall and there was beautiful colors, but I didn't want it to just look like a big old thing of trees. And, so I really had to work through getting the atmospheric quality to it to make it have some dimension and in that. So it was a challenge. So it was fun to do. And it was also just took me back there when I worked on it. And that definitely is my favorite commission so far that I've done.
Wow, that's an amazing story. That truly is, because like it just shows like how in tune like you are, how adventurous you are to get the picture, to get that wholesome feeling that you want to get whenever you do the painting too, and being able to set your ways in the art form that you do, that just describes you as like an artist and as a painter and as like somebody who focuses and loves what they do. I mean, not everybody would do that. Not everybody would go to that level. They could just go to Google Images and just pick up something. But what you do is different. You actually go to these locations. You actually take snapshots. You take photos. And yeah, artists do that sometimes. I mean, even in the movies section, people will go to the locations to get inspiration. But that just sets the tone of you as an artist and your craft and how much effort you go into as someone who's so well developed and someone who's so well adapted to that lifestyle. And it's not just the music that gets you inspired, but it's also the locations and being able to be in that moment, be in that atmosphere where you could be like, this is a peaceful, this is very, I would love to have this in a section where whenever I look at it, I can have that memory. I can have those feelings. It's in its way, it's a little bit of a nostalgia. Like you go back, you think about Joan Jett, for example. Like if you listen to one of the songs, like, oh, I remember back when this song came out, I was doing this, this, and this. Same thing with paintings. Like when you look at a painting, you can not only hear a painting, like for example, the waterfall behind you, like I can hear what that could sound like. I could hear what birds could be chirping. Like that's the whole thing that you do. And with that, that's one of the reasons why I loved that you're actually on here with us right now, is because you could talk about your craft, you could talk about that, and it's very relatable for many individuals, for many people. And just being able to share those life stories is to set in stone of who you are. Besides landscapes, have you done like portraits? Have you done like buildings? Have you done any sort of something that you actually is out of your realm, something that you try to do,
Mhm.
or something
Yeah.
that's out of your regular work style?
Yes. Well, I feel like being trained as I was, I can paint like any subject with a realistic flair. I mean, I so a lot of my commissions are for different things than what I normally paint. Somebody wanted me to paint their dog, and that was really fun to do that. And I wanted a dog for my portfolio to show that I could do that, so that helped. And I wanted a portrait for my portfolio because I knew I could do it, but I didn't have any portraits in my portfolio. And we had this really good friend who kept taking us on boat rides. He had a pontoon boat, and every Friday after work, we'd go out on his pontoon on Summersville Lake in West Virginia. And so I wanted to do something for him for a gift. He was retiring and he was having a birthday, and I just thought, hey, that is a good portrait. I'll paint a painting of him on his, as he's driving his boat, and with the lake in the background, because I like settings, even if I'm choosing what I'm going to do, it's got to look natural. It can't, even when I take a picture of people, I don't like posed pictures. I like it to be the candid shots. And so I like settings that are natural. So I painted that and a portrait, put that in my portfolio, and everybody that sees it says, oh, that looks just like him. And they love it. But, um, there have been different things like that. I did a big painting of flowers for another commission. So usually the things out of landscapes are usually commissions. Other than one that I did for it was therapy for myself, and when I talked to you about it a little bit before, and when I found out I had cancer, I was distraught. I was honestly distraught. My mom and my sister at that time had both died from breast cancer, and that was what I was diagnosed with. And I just thought I was going to die. I really did. I thought, this is the end. What's the point of doing anything? I really felt like, and but I had also, as an artist, the way I process things is visually or with art. And I had this vision in my head of like, my breasts were betraying me. There was a storm all around my breasts. And so I just felt like I had to paint that. I had to go paint that. And it was weird for me to paint something like that. But I just felt so compelled. It was like the most compelling that I'd ever felt to paint something, I think. And so I got this square board and just one day went in my studio before my treatment started. It was at the very beginning, and I whipped it out in 2 hours. I've never painted anything that fast in 2 hours, but I painted it was breasts with pink swirls all around it, and I called it Pink Storm because breast cancer awareness is always pink. And I felt like I felt like, this is crazy. This is a betrayal. It's not pretty. It's awful. And so I painted that. I honestly, I couldn't, when I just started doing it, and when I looked at the clock, I couldn't believe it had only been 2 hours. And I felt like pretty much it was done. And I felt better. It felt like it was very therapeutic. It felt like, okay, now I can deal with this. And I don't know, it was partly inspiration, partly just my own emotions having to come out. And I just had to do it. And then I felt like it helped me cope. It helped me deal. And so that's probably the most different thing I've ever done as far as my painting style, goes.
But it's also such a personal story too. And the most wonderful thing is the fact that, by bringing you on here, by bringing you to share this, is everyone who's ever been in that circumstance and has ever felt that feeling knows that they're not alone. Like, you are not alone. Like, there are other individuals, other women who've had that same feeling. And just by you sharing your story is very relatable for a lot of individuals. And by you being able to, like you said, therapeutic, being able to paint that, it's being able to release those emotions to your painting to the point where you felt better afterwards. Because whenever any sort of emotion comes through, that's where the art comes into play, because you could put your art into emotion, and that's exactly what you did. And I saw the actual painting itself, and it's a beautiful painting. Like, it's really well done. It's very, and I honestly can't believe you whipped that up in 2 hours, because that would have taken me about 2 months. But that's
That's
just,
what makes, yeah, that's why I think it was a lot inspiration, because it just like came out, and I can't believe I did it in 2 hours either. So,
well,
yeah.
it's absolutely wonderful. And, I can't thank you enough for sharing that story, just only because of how, not only, like I said, how personal it is, but there's so many other women who have experienced that, who will watch this, who will listen to this and say, I felt the same thing. I know exactly how she's feeling. And, I'm not alone. And because you do have women out there who are going at it at alone, and knowing you have gone through it, that's definitely something that is relatable. And I can't personally thank you enough for sharing that, and sharing that story and everything. It truly does mean a lot, to share your journey, as well as through the whole painting, scope, realm, from like high school, from college, to where you are at now. Like, is there, because one thing I did see is you did a painting for a city, right? You did something on the
Yeah,
outside of the
in my
city.
city, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It,
Oh, yeah, that is, well, that also, though, it was interesting because there was a contest, and they wanted art to print on a vinyl wrap to go around these large electrical boxes that are all through the city, with, for the electrical lights in the city. So I entered the contest, and I thought, well, this would be cool, but I never win these kind of contests, because they always want like graphic art, and I'm not a graphic artist. But I entered it, and I thought, okay, all they wanted was, they wanted to see your website, and they wanted your idea for the thing. So I gave them two ideas. I thought, well, one idea would be, there's this iconic, beautiful overlook here right outside of our town, called Cooper's Rock.
Hmm.
It's a state forest, and there's this huge, it's like a river gorge. It overlooks a gorge, and it's a huge rock that everybody can go out and stand on, and
Mhm.
it's amazing. And so everybody in the area knows about it. And that's what people say, you got to go see Cooper's Rock if you go to Morgantown. So I thought, well, okay, they might like that in the city, because to get people thinking that we have more than just city here. But I also gave them a collage idea that I could do, because in case they wanted something more graphic. And when they came back to me, they said, we really want you to do the Cooper's Rock overlook. So I was really glad. So I went out and took some extra pictures of the overlook, and got a good vantage point that I felt like would work good for this thing. So I did this, and I changed the colors. I put it in sunset colors to make it have some contrast. I didn't want it all green, and so I did, it was really fun. I painted this long painting to be put to be wrapped around an electrical box. And the painting itself, the sketch, as I was working on the sketch for it, somebody saw it on my Instagram. I think I posted about it, and they contacted me and said, hey, can I buy this sketch from you? And I was like, wow, okay. It's not that good. I mean, it's just a sketch, but you can. And I said, well, if I finish it, maybe I could finish it for you. And she's like, no, I like it as it is. And so I sold the sketch, and then I also sold the city paid me something for, doing what I did. It was not a big amount, but I liked being able to do something like that for the community, and it's worth it to me I also love community help. My husband works in community and economic redevelopment in West Virginia. And so I've been involved in a lot of community programs through that, and realized the value in community coming together for a purpose, and community caring about the arts and about their areas, and helping each other out in that way. So to me, that was really important, just to be a part of that, community involvement. And so I didn't mind that I wasn't getting paid much for it. But the original painting then sold, a bank in town bought the painting when they saw it. So that was It was great. It was a fun project to do. And it's fun having my work on an electrical box down. So
How long did it take you to do it?
how long?
Yeah.
Um, huh. It was I was glad that I had done a detailed sketch and everything, because I did the sketch, and then all the red tape that happens, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not. It was the weirdest thing. It was kind of like they were saying, well, once we get the approval, they had to get the approval, because they were going on a grant that they had applied for. So I had to get the approval and the grant money and everything. And I didn't hear from them for a while. So I thought, well, maybe it's not happening. Or, I didn't really know. And then finally I got back in touch, and they were like, oh yeah, once we get the grant money, then we're going to need the art within a couple of weeks. And so I'm like, I better get going on this thing. So I started, I painted it. It didn't, I think it only took me maybe 3 weeks or something, because I just did it really fast. I just really focused on it. And I didn't make it super, super detailed, because I knew it was going on an electrical box, so it wasn't like I had to worry about tons of detail, but I wanted it to look real and have depth to it. But yeah, so it was kind of, and I actually like struggled with getting the right photography for it. I was trying to get, because of the size of it, and the length and everything, trying to get it photographed. I finally, it was another very serendipitous thing, that I was at a craft show, and somebody came up to my booth and said, they were a photographer. They had a photography thing, and he printed, his business was printing signs and banners and things. And I was like, do you have a way that you could photograph this painting that I just finished that I need to photograph? And so I happened to just find them and get it to them, and they did the photograph. That they got that over to the other printer that was doing it just in the nick of time. It was like, I was having them send it directly to the printer, because it was like, I had got it. It was still wet basically when they were photographing. Wow. And I said, be careful. So it was a tight turnaround on that one.
So what is the process between actually having a painting and then getting a wrap? So like, how do you take that painting from the canvas to a wrap, or to like a poster or something along those lines? Like, what is the process with that?
Well, they need a good high definition digital photograph. They needed, and then basically just send the high def image to the company that's going to do the printing, and then they print it out on vinyl. They got the everything they need to do that, and they did the wrap. I didn't really, once I got the art to them and made sure they had a good photograph of it, they did the rest. So.
Oh wow, okay. Now before we actually move on and everything to the other second half of the show, is there any projects that you are currently working on right now?
I'm not. I'm taking a little break. I had a huge, busy fall and Christmas season, and I had a show in a gallery in a little town in Richwood, West Virginia, a new gallery there. That it was really cool, because my husband had actually been involved in helping this place become something. This vacant building got developed, and then they asked me to have my art there. So it was a really neat full circle story. And I sold throughout the season, between there and other places, and in the Tamarack Gallery, I sold like 12 paintings, or eight to 12. I can't remember. Throughout the year, I've sold a lot, but I think like I sold at least 10 original paintings in the month of November and December, and wow. So I was busy, and I working on Christmas events, and then Christmas shipping. I had got a lot of orders for Christmas time, so I was shipping things out. So my studio was a total wreck with all, just kind of getting all these things done. And so I took all last week after Christmas cleaning up cleaning up, getting it reorganized, and I'm ready to go again. But I got some commissions. I got like 3, I think, lined up right now, that I need to, communicate with the people and tell them when I'm ready. And then there's always gallery shows. I'm involved in Tamarack. It's called Tamarack, the Best of West Virginia. It's an artisan center. It's a tourist kind of location, and right off the highway, and they only sell things that are made in West Virginia. And I'm part of that. Their gallery shows. They have a really wonderful gallery there, really high quality. And every 6 weeks or so, they have a different theme. And so I'm usually, if I'm not working on a specific commission, I'm usually trying to get something done that will fit their theme for a show. And that gives me things to work toward. If I need I've got a ton of my own ideas of things that I just want to do, but it's nice to have these themes and know that it's could go into their show. So I wasn't able to put anything in their most recent show because I was so busy with what I had going on. They have a rule that once something has been shown there, you can't show it again there. So
okay.
So I didn't have anything new to take because so much had sold, which I was glad for. But I need to work up some more new things to be able to take to exhibits and things. So I'll be doing that.
Wow, busy, right?
Yeah. It is great. It's fun. I love doing what I love. It's just a blessing to be able to do that. So.
Well, that's amazing, and it sounds like West Virginia has a wonderful artist living in its state. So again, anybody who is from West Virginia, who lives in West Virginia, hit up Connie Moeller for any paintings, any oil paintings, any landscapes, anything you want. She is your woman to go to. She is the go-to.
Well, and there's people all over the country actually that have my paintings. Probably the farthest one away is in the state of Washington.
Oh, wow.
A woman that had been, actually, she was the national park superintendent here for the New River Gorge, and retired and moved to Washington. And she bought one of my paintings right before she left. She's like, I got to have this painting. And so she's got it out there with her. And then I got other ones around the country as well. People, it's kind of fun. They order from my website and see something, or they stop by Tamarack and pick it up, and I don't quite know where it goes from there. So yeah.
But hey, at least it's getting it out there, right?
Yeah.
And with that in mind, Connie, go ahead and remind everybody where they can find you, whether if it be social media, contact information, your website. Go ahead and give them the lowdown on where they can find you, basically.
Yeah. Okay. My website has links to all the other social media, so that is probably the best place to go. It's Connie Mae, that's CONNIEMAE -art.com. That's my website. And then I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as Connie Mae Studio. So you can go to any of those places and find me.
That's awesome. That's spectacular. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and being able to discuss, your life story in regards to the arts and everything. And now we are actually jumping into the second half of the show, where we go to the year that you specifically chose, and where we will, of course, discuss the Back in Time segment. So let us go ahead and jump back to 1979. Welcome to 1979. This is the segment for Back in Time, where what we do is we discuss the top 5 TV shows, cartoons, movies, and it looks like we have the top toys this time as well. So I gave the guest the choice. Connie would like to do the top TV shows. So Connie, go ahead and take it away with the top 5 TV shows in 1979.
All right. These were found from classictv.com. That's where the research gathered this information. And I chose TV shows because the age I was in 1979, I wasn't watching a lot of cartoons. So I did watch several of the TV shows. So that's kind of fun for me. The first one was 60 Minutes with an estimated 21.6 million in audience. 60 Minutes was probably not something I watched a lot of as a junior in high school, but I remember it being on. Three's Company was next with an estimated 30 million in audience. I did watch Three's Company. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a goofy, fun show. Did you watch it, Todd, ever? Did you see it?
Well, with Three's Company, I'm sorry. I didn't actually watch many of it. Like there are some of the shows that I'll remember, like for an example, like 60 Minutes, like it'll show up on YouTube every once in a while. Like in the previous episodes, like we talked about 60 Minutes, and what we really remember is that commercial, like next time on 60 Minutes, so Three's Company is kind of like one of those TV shows with the same where I know of it, but I haven't actually watched it.
Here's a funny thing that was really funny about it was it was this threesome that weren't really a threesome. It was two girls and a guy that just wanted to share an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And these days that would not matter at all. They wouldn't even need this premise. But back then it was kind of taboo for guys and girls to be cohabitating, you know, and so they had to tell the landlords that the guy was gay. In order for the landlords to let him live with the two girls, even though he wasn't. And so it was just hilarious, all the situations that they would get into because, and the landlords were really eccentric and they were really crazy, weird. I mean, and so they were always like alluding to this guy being, you know, the one guy, you'd call him a fruitcake or whatever, back what they used to do back then, you know, and he would have to go along with it because otherwise he'd get kicked out of the apartment, you know. So it was, and then they do all these, it was just a crazy sitcom. And it was, I don't know, I loved it as a kid. It was just fun to watch, you know. And I still remember the song. I mean, I remember I watched it that much that the song is in my head as we're thinking about it. So
it's a big change from back then with Three's Company and like now with Friends or How I Met Your Mother and everything like that. Yeah. It's changed drastically.
It has. That's what's really funny now to think about how that could even have been a thing, you know, but yeah, it was fun. Okay, the third highest looks like was That's Incredible with an estimated 19.6 million in audience.
I've never heard of that
and
one.
I kind of vaguely remember, I think it would talk about things like extreme things. I didn't see it very much. It was an interesting thing, probably kind of like, like you have, I'm trying to think, there's something similar to it now maybe, but yeah, it was, I don't know. It was just saying things that were really unusual, you know, they feature something like that. So, then fourth was Alice, another sitcom, estimated at 19 million audiences. I also watched Alice. I liked sitcoms. I mean, it was the thing back then. There was tons of funny sitcoms, and Alice, it was about a waitress in a diner, and it was in all the stuff that her and her coworkers did, and other scenarios that they'd happen, and taking care of, trying to be at work. And I think she might have been a single mom, or one of them was at least. I don't remember all of it, but it was fun. It was a fun show. And then MASH was the last one, estimated 19 million audiences. And I definitely watched MASH. I remember tons of the episodes. It was really, I mean, you can see that all the time in syndication, I'm sure, or wherever you see it on different things.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not
MASH it was something that, it was just fun. It was every week they were getting into some other kind of predicament, and it was just a goofy way to, I mean, even though it was set during Vietnam, I think it was it Vietnam? Yeah, it was, and I remember when I was a kid, Vietnam was still going on, you know, so it wasn't that far removed from the actual, so it was kind of, you know, like you need some comic relief in a serious time. And so it was kind of that, it was kind of fun to have comedy out of something that was not funny, but it was a fun show. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the first time it's been on this list either. Like it spanned, I believe, into the 80s too. But I know
Wow.
MASH had a lot of breakout stars as well that hit it big. I do remember few episodes as well, and it was definitely during the time of Vietnam. Um, and it was very lighthearted, though it had its serious moments from time to time as well,
Yeah.
which was, kind of a major thing that you should keep in every sitcom is like you have your quirky moments and you have your serious moments because, it's very, then that way you can keep it relatable
Mhm.
for many
Yeah.
individuals.
Right.
Um, and with that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and jump into the top 5 premiered. It looks like a lot of these cartoons premiered during the year 1979. This list actually occurred. Well, this list came from the source of Wikipedia, and I know a lot of you would be like, "Oh, they got the list from Wikipedia." Well, you try researching some of this stuff. It's actually quite hard. Um, so number 1, it looks like it was the Plastic Man comedy. It was an adventure. It was spanned for 130 episodes. I never heard of it. No.
I don't remember. I wasn't watching cartoons at that age. So
So number 2 was The New Adventures of Flash Gordon. Had 32 episode run from 79 to 80. I mean, everybody knows Flash Gordon. I mean, there's so many references, whether if you're watching Family Guy, The Simpsons, or even just regular TV shows too, or even movies. Like there's always a reference to Flash Gordon somewhere. It's definitely a staple. Definitely a staple. Number 3 is The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jecky, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Heckle and Jekyll. It was Heckle and Jekyll.
Heckle and Jekyll. Sorry, yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
Heckle and Jekyll. It aired for 32 episodes from 79 to 80. I believe that was a Hanna-Barbera one too, wasn't it?
Could have been. It probably was.
Number 4 was The New Fred and Barney Show, which had 17 episodes and was only running 1979, and that was it. Fred and Barney is, of course, Flintstones, and that has came a long way from, I believe it started off black and white and possibly an early episode or maybe first commercial where they sold cigarettes.
The Flintstones?
Yeah.
Wow. I did watch the Flintstones as a kid, but I didn't watch the Fred and Barney show much. But the Flintstones I remember.
Yeah, I remember that's a big thing from back in the day was Fred and Barney was selling cigarettes and stuff too, like on the commercials. It was black and white commercial. So
a long time ago, but yeah.
And then number 5 was The New Schmo, Rickety Rocket, Scooby-Doo, and Spider-Woman. So all those looks like all those cartoons came into play during that year, and they all looked to have the same amount of audiences, or actually aired that year and had a 16 episode run. I do not know The New Shmoo, Rickety Rocket. Obviously, I know Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, and then Spider-Woman. I mean, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so I know exactly who Spider-Woman is. And I do vaguely remember that cartoon, though I did watch a little bit more Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo between that list, though, which, I mean, Scrappy-Doo, I thought he was definitely an additive to the character's development, as in the whole for the Mystery Machine and, the kids. I didn't like how he was portrayed in the live action movie, though.
Oh, I didn't see the live action movie. How did you think? Did you feel like he was added to appeal to younger kids? Is that why they added Scrappy-Doo, you think?
I personally, I think so. I mean, that seems like a more logical reasoning. I mean, if you look at Batman 66 and stuff like that with Adam West, that was the first appearance of Batgirl was during that TV show. And that was to, of course, bring in the female audience to that TV show. Same thing with Harley Quinn in the Batman animated series in the 90s. Harley Quinn was a new character that was developed in that cartoon to bring the female audience into there, and then slowly adapted into comic book form. But with Scrappy Doo, I feel like, yeah, it possibly was for bringing more kids, because I mean, if you look at the Doo universe, there are so many characters based around like Scooby-Doo. I mean, you have the Blue Falcon, who had his sidekick that was a dog, from Hanna-Barbera, and he is related to Scooby. Scrappy is related to Scooby. And then there are so many Doos out there that I agree that I believe that he was probably added for more of the younger audience, because he definitely had the syndrome of being the small one but always wanting to fight.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Were you a fan?
of Scrappy Doo.
Yeah.
I loved Scooby Doo. I mean, me and my sister used to watch Scooby Doo all the time. And by the time they introduced Scrappy Doo, I wasn't watching cartoons much anymore. And so, and I guess I'm kind of one of those, was like, why did they mess with it? It was kind of like, it was good enough. They didn't need to add something like that. But I could understand if they wanted it to appeal to younger kids, they had to bring in some, what it was, like a nephew or something. Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, I understood why they did it. I wasn't a huge fan, but
Yeah, it wasn't really, I guess, needed.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because even like from the cartoons that they're airing nowadays, where it's like the remake, I don't ever see anything Scrappy related.
Yeah. But they were fun. They were fun mysteries, and they were goofy, a little bit of, goofiness in them, and little adult stuff that I didn't even catch on to as a kid, but now when I look at them, I'm like, oh, those had some,
So
yeah.
fun fact about the real life action, talk about like adult related humor, is if you watch the the real life action version of Scooby-Doo, there are certain elements in there that as an adult, like you catch on to it now, when as a kid that you never caught on. And a little backstory on that too is the writer of the film Scooby-Doo the live action is James Gunn, which you'll know James Gunn from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He wrote it and directed them. James Gunn actually wanted to make a rated R Scooby-Doo movie.
Wow. Yeah, well, that it would have probably fit. I mean, of the audience, if it was the people that grew up watching, and they are adults now, so why not? I mean, seems like.
Yeah, I believe he said it was supposed to be like a mixture between comedy and horror, which wouldn't make sense if you're doing a real life action and then like the horror aspect because of all the haunted houses and the people. But I wouldn't picture it being, I wouldn't want it to be kind of gory though.
Right.
Like that just wouldn't fit.
Well, then they were always the stories that were the actual cartoon. They always were somebody dressed up. It was never anything that was actually freaky or scary.
Right.
It was always,
All right, and then next we have the top toys. Would you like to take lead, or would you like me to take lead?
Well, I can read them if you want. Or do you want to take turns?
Or we can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, the top toys from peoplehistory.com, not in any specific order. The Atari 400 home computer system, priced at $549.95. Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of like a video game system now. So I couldn't imagine of how, I mean, inflation, it's maybe finding an Xbox now would be like $800, maybe $900. So back then I would see equivalent to that. But it's pretty expensive.
Well, not many people had home computer systems back then either. That was like a very new thing. So that was, yeah. I remember when Atari was a big thing.
Did you want to do the next one?
Okay, Farrah Fawcett Glamour Center, price $12.88. Wow, the Farrah Fawcett hair was so big. I remember before that they had those Barbie heads that were like to do their hair. So there was the Farrah Fawcett one. It was like that, and it was so you know, to create Farrah Fawcett's look, I guess, on the head.
Yeah, they actually still have some of the Barbies out there now that are kind of similar to that. Like they'll come out with it every once in a while. So they still do toys like that, but it's crazy how like back then it was like Farrah Fawcett and it's not Barbie, which, you know, would be kind of be to me be a little more beneficial now because you have so many more of the popular actresses that are well known now that I mean, could you imagine like before her death, like how big a Betty White glamour center would have been?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
may
that's
her rest
funny.
in peace, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Farrah Fawcett hair was like all of a sudden everybody was doing their hair like Farrah Fawcett at that time. It was really crazy how what a craze it became. But
So it looks like number 3 is the Star Wars Millennium Falcon. That was priced at $24.77 back in the day. And then from my understanding is Star Wars back then, when it first came out, you could only see it in theaters because VHSs weren't invented yet. So that's the only time that you'd be able to see it. I can't remember if it was ever on TV at any points in time, but I do know that when the movie did come out, the toys were in such a high demand that some of the toys were back ordered for like a full year, to the point where parents, what they would do is they would buy like certificates that showed the proof the purchase, and then they would just get it whenever they made more toys.
wow, they were popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next one on the list that was also equal as popular or equally as popular was Starship Enterprise. That was priced at $5.99, which it's a big difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. It's like a $20 difference, $21 difference.
Yeah, that is huge. I wonder if there was a big difference in size or something. That's
Yeah, that's true too. Like the size probably did matter as well. Were you a big fan of either or?
Oh, I loved Star Wars. I mean, I saw it in the theaters, of course, and couldn't wait for the next ones. I was the one of those people in the long lines waiting for Star Wars 2 to come out, you know. And I liked Star Trek too. So I didn't understand it, of course, when I was young, but then as I got older, I thought it was really fun, you know, just it was kind of retro fun, you know.
Which one did you prefer? Do you have a preference?
Of which of the
Are you more of a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan?
Oh, well, they're so different, really. I mean, they're totally different. I think probably just the I don't know, the theatricalness of it, probably Star Wars, you know, the whole saga, you know, I just thought it was so creative, so cool, you know, and that probably ranks a little higher with me, but they were both good, you know. So
And fun fact about Star Wars is, have you seen the new Dune movie or Dune that was back in the 80s?
No,
So
I
Star
haven't.
Wars actually got a lot of its inspiration from Dune, the book when it first
Huh.
came out. Because if you look at the Jedi Mind Trick, the book Dune, when it came out, actually did that first. So there's a lot of elements that was in Dune that Star Wars, well, George Lucas took inspirations from.
That's interesting.
So
Wow.
yeah, little fun fact there.
Yeah.
And then it looks like number 5, last but not least, is the Speak and Spell for $58.99. Wow, for a Speak and Spell?
I remember the ads for that. I mean, I remember that being, you know, the ads on TV for it, and it was like it seemed like a huge craze. Like it was like the first like educational kind of computerized toy. It seemed like, or one of the first. It was like you would think you would say a word and it would spell it or something like that. And so it's supposed to help kids with spelling. So I'm thinking it was probably popular because parents wanted it for their kids, but I don't know any kid that would really want it. I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, because I know that you can buy one of those things for less than that now.
I didn't know they still made them. Wow.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the top 5 movies of 1979. This comes from boxofficemojo.com, which usually, all their information comes from IMDb. Some of the famous movies that came out there was Apocalypse Now, which was Francis Ford Coppola's. Also starred Tiger Blood. What's his name? I don't know. I had his father's name right. Charlie Sheen's. Charlie Sheen's father stars in
Okay.
there. I
Huh.
do apologize. I don't know why his name just came into a blank. The Warriors, National Lampoon's Animal House, which of course everybody knows John Belushi, Dracula, and then Buck Rogers, and in the 25th century, and then of course Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope came out as well, which is, Star Wars has always had a very heavy thing in my life. Have one tattoo of it, so many more to possibly come. I don't know. We'll just find out. And let's see here. So number 1, it looks like Superman, that aired with Christopher Reeves, that brought in 134 million. Number 2 was the Amityville Horror, that grossed 86 million. Number 3 was Rocky 2, which I didn't realize that Rocky was actually that early in the, like Rocky 1 was that early. I always thought that it was an 80s, but I just keep forgetting that was a 70s movie.
Yeah, I for some reason I was thinking that too, but
Good
they were
old,
good. Yeah, they're
yeah,
fun.
yeah, good old
I
Sylvester
yeah,
Stallone.
yeah.
It looks like that one grossed 85 million. Number 4 was Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the very first one, I guess. That was 82 million. And then number 5, one of my personal favorites, Alien, for $78.9 million. I mean, I've seen all of those movies, but anyone you have a fond memory of?
Well, I liked a lot of them, honestly. I saw the Star Trek movie in the theater, and I was so impressed with how they did that. I just loved how they created a movie out of a show that I'd watched. And then the Alien I saw later. I think I saw it. Maybe it was rated R or something, and
Yeah.
I was probably too young to see it at the time. But later I saw it like when it was on TV, I think, and how they at that back then they would always put movies on TV kind of not too far after it was out, so it was a few years after, but I just it was so amazing to me how crazy it was. I really liked it. I mean, it was like, but the it kind of grossed me out in some spots, and but it was like to think that it was very creative, and I still liked it. It was a weird movie, but I liked it.
Yeah, and a fun fact about the Alien movie too is, when the alien pops out of the chest, that sequence. So Ridley Scott didn't tell anybody anything that was going to happen. All they knew is he was going to lay on the table, and something's going to happen. But he didn't say
So he
anything
wanted
about
their
the blood.
expression.
Yeah, he wanted their expression. So nothing about the blood, nothing about the alien that popped out of the chest. So when the alien actually popped out, like everybody's facial reaction, especially Sigourney Weaver's facial expression, was all real. They did not expect that. They did not expect the blood to be splattered on them, because Ridley Scott wanted to get that actual reaction out of them.
That's interesting. That's great to know. I mean, that's probably why it was so real. Yeah, that's
yeah, and it's still an iconic thing too. I mean, look at Mel Brooks when he did Spaceballs. At the very end, the thing comes out of the guy's chest as an homage to the alien, and then the alien guy starts singing, "Hello, my baby, hello, my darling, hello, my ragtime doll." Like, it's just a funny skit, but it pays homage to that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can hear you scream in space, or in space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah, is that where that came from?
Yep.
I forgot where that came from. Wow.
In
I'm not
space,
good at
nobody
remembering lines from movies.
That's okay. I am full of like unnecessary knowledge when it comes to movies. So that's just how I am.
You
All right.
probably wouldn't be doing a show like this if you weren't, right?
Exactly. And with that, what we'll do is we'll get into our segment of Sell Me a Movie.
Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children.
And now we are here to sell you a movie. And a lot of you may not know about this segment, and a lot of you may know about this segment. If you are new, then you don't. So basically what we do is Connie here has chosen one of the movies out of the top 5 to go ahead and try to sell to you. A lot of times, and the reason why we do this is because if there's a movie that we haven't seen, then it brings the movie awareness to us. So then that way we could share it to you. If you've seen all these movies, fantastic. Maybe it'll get you to the mood to go watch it again. But again, this is the whole time when we try to sell you a movie that we think was the top charts and why it deserved that position, and honestly, why it was the best movie of that year. So with that, what we'll do is we'll let Connie go. So Connie, I will count you down in 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, as I already said, I liked a lot of the movies from that year, but I chose Superman because I feel like it was the epic classic. And it's a must-see for a few reasons. First of all, it was the first big-time superhero movie ever produced. And superhero movies are big now, but Superman was kind of the forerunner for the big screen, all-time movie. And this featured the all-time iconic man in tights, Superman. And that was kind of the beginning of all that. And another smaller reason is I really think you ought to see Christopher Reeves at his best. I mean, he looked great in that movie. In fact, my husband and I were rewatching it the other night just to brush up, and he kept saying how handsome Christopher Reeves was. So he even said, I need to bring that point out, and he did a great job in it. And another tidbit is that this was another terrific score by John Williams. If you like John Williams scores in movies, it's a great score. So you if you want to see it just for that, but it was a really well done movie for its time. It's of course different from movies these days. It's not nearly as flashy as the current superhero movies because it just didn't have all the technology it does for some part of it, and also I feel like it also gave it more humanity maybe than some of the movies do. There was more drama in it. It was much. I think the drama in that movie was as much a part of the action. You dealt a lot with Clark Kent's inner conflict. Like he kind of wanted people to, as a high schooler, it showed how he wanted people to know that who he really was, but his dad kind of talked him down from that sometimes, and so he had this inner conflict of knowing he had this strength but not being able to tell anybody at the time. And there's also in this movie another thing that differs is that his aim was strictly to help people. There was not a lot of fighting in it. He was there to help people. His motto or his catchphrase was he was here to defend truth, justice, and the American way. And he kept saying that, and that was a big thing. And I think that's very valuable for a movie to have some good moral value as well as some fun action. And that kind of leads to my next point, which is also a little more philosophical, is he knew who he was. He had his identity. By the time he was Superman, he knew he was here for a reason, and his father had told him, you're here for a reason, and he knew this, and that gave him the confidence to be able to be humble as well as know that he was Superman. And so it's a must see.
Well, that's good. That's good. Good job for your first time. That was awesome. That was good.
A little stumbling over my words a little bit, trying to talk fast.
Please, if you've listened to some of the episodes previous before here, you will see on how many times I've stumbled. So I am the king of stumbling. So you did perfectly fine. You did great. All right. So I guess it's my turn. And with this, I'll let you actually count me down.
Okay. How do I do that?
Just say 3, 2, 1.
Oh, okay. That's easy. All right. My screen keeps changing. Okay, ready? Or you wanting me to go yet, or?
Yeah, go ahead and count me down.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
All right, and with this movie, just like Connie, I've seen all these movies, and I kind of wanted to bring into light on a specific movie that kind of goes unnoticed because everybody knows Rocky, everyone knows Star Trek, everyone knows Superman and Alien, but I wanted to bring the Amityville Horror into play. Now, I am a horror fan in some cases because of the fact that these types of movies actually do scare me. You have the Freddys, you have the Jasons, they do nothing for me, but these types of movies actually bring the goosebumps into play. And Amityville Horror is just that. Though it was made in '79, same thing with Superman. Is the technology wasn't how it is today, but even so, they did more practical effects because of that. It's all based on a true life story as well, based in Amityville, city of Amityville in New York, based on the DeFeo family murders. The original was, of course, 2005, starring Ryan Reynolds. 2017, Amityville, The Awakening with Bella Thorne, Cameron Monaghan, Jennifer Morrison, Kurtwood Smith as well. He actually was Red Foreman in that '70s show. And now I guess there's one in 2018 called The Amityville Murder. So obviously this did play a big role into American society, especially within the horror film genre. It was directed by Stuart Rosenberg, who did the Defenders TV show. Cool Hand Luke, starring Paul Newman, was a movie. Sandor Stern did the screenplay, but it was basically based, again, on a true story and a book by Jay Anson, as it's based on the connection with Ed and Lorraine Warren, too. So if you're a fan with them, go with it. And it was the Amityville Horror movie sets places with the Lutz family, mainly because of the fact that you have the DeFeo family murders that happened because the son shot the family within the house and claimed that he was possessed by the devil. Then you had the Lutz's family who moved in a couple of weeks after, who only stayed for about, I believe, 2 weeks inside that house and ended up running because the father started to hear voices as well. So it's based on a true horror real life story. It does star James Brolin, which you'll know that name because Josh Brolin is his son, the guy who played Thanos, and a lot of many other famous artists or actors as well. Margot Kidder, Rod Steering as well. Again, based on a true story about a haunted house, and it is actually scary even to today's standards. There are little cheesy moments, but it's a great introduction into the horror genre of this scary film, of the the paranormal universe as well. And with that tied to Ed and Lorraine Warren, it doesn't showcase in that movie, but it makes you search the real life story. Oh, and I'm done. And in all honesty, I didn't think I would be able to cover all of that because I started to see the time go down. I was like, I'm not going to make it. I am not going to make it. So, whew.
That's interesting. I think that's the only one I didn't see ever, probably because I wasn't old enough to see it at the time. And then I don't like a lot of some horror movies. I like, it kind of depends on what they are about. And I don't think I knew much about that. So yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I won't talk about it more because we did that on a couple of episodes where we stopped selling the movie and then we sold each other's like opposite movie. So like for example, Justin was on here on one of the episodes, and you guys can go ahead and take a listen back then. And he sold the movie, and then it was my turn, and I sold him the movie, and then he started complimenting me on the movie I chose and why it was such a great movie. And then I started complimenting his movie and why that was such a great movie. So we're trying so hard not to say positive things because we want to be able to, of course, have you guys, the listener, to decide, who sold the best movie? What is your favorite movie? Do you have a favorite movie out of that list? If not, then, what is your favorite movie from that year specifically? And what random year would you like us to cover? Do you have a special guest, any, recommendations, such as any artists that we have, here, Connie, with us right now to discuss the life story and, their inspiration through the art and, what makes them who they are. Also, if you are an independent movie producer, we'd love to talk to you about interviews, stuff like that. Same thing that we did here. And Connie, before we actually go ahead and let everyone know exactly, again, where they can find you, where they can commission you. Lay them out.
Okay. ConnieMay.com. No, ConnieMay-art.com. It's Connie is ConnieMae-art.com is my website, and my Instagram and Facebook are both Connie May Studio.
Awesome. And with that in mind, we want to thank you for joining us today, as well as for your patience as this is the first episode after the holidays. So we hope that you had a wonderful holiday. We love you all and hope you guys have a wonderful day.